Welcome to Gun News and Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at the Leupold VX-3HD rifle scope. We've got this mounted on top of a MAUSER M-18 rifle in .270 Winchester. We're going to talk about this particular scope. We're also going to try several different types of ammo and see what kind of accuracy we can get shooting at 100 and 200 yards outdoors. The MOUSER M-18 was reviewed by this channel almost a year ago, and we're very happy with how this rifle has performed and thought this would be the best overall platform with which to evaluate a new rifle scope as well as ammo. This particular version has a very basic crosshair, which is my preferred way to shoot, and has some nice features. You're going to see it has a throw lever on it, which enables you to adjust the magnification from 3.5 to 10. It also has what's called a custom dial system for your top turret for your elevation. And basically, once you have found your elevation 0, you can adjust this to a rearward position, and that's your starting point for wanting to increase elevation, and simply click back. These are set with some set screws. Again, after you've found your sweet spot. Here's your side turret. 1 click equals a quarter MOA for your windage. Very positive, well-made knob. Here you're looking at the clearance between that 50 millimeter bell and the rifle barrel. Now we're going to talk about the ammo we shot today, starting with this new Remington core locked. It's a .270 Winchester. It's 130 grains, and it has a muzzle velocity of 3,080 feet per second, and out at 200 yards, it's 2658. Also looking at the Elite Hunter from SUEUR. Now that's a 140 grain bullet, and it's 120 less feet per second in terms of velocity at the muzzle, and we'll see how that comes into play in a minute. Last, we're going to look at this Federal non-typical whitetail. That's 3060 at the muzzle and 2560 at 200 yards. The last variable we're going to take a look at today is how are we shooting? We're going to be shooting seated off of bags from a bench rest, and we have both a front and back bag, and this is what we're looking at out to 200 yards there in the center for this particular target. So we're going to just get as comfortable as we can and use the bags as much as possible to support our point of aim. Going to let her rip. Should be a comfortable scenario with this rifle, and of course it is. Taking 3 shots just to start out. One of the things you're going to notice also with this rifle is how positive the ejection is. So I took 3 shots having put a new scope on the rifle. I took 3 shots with this SUEUR, and it's good for an inch or less group. I didn't want to waste my limited amount of this new core lock, so after bore sighting last night with a new scope with the Leupold, it's perfect on windage, but where I want to be at 100, I was about 5.5 inches low. So we made the requisite number of clicks, and now we're going to start seeing how this does. First at 100 yards. The conditions where I'm at today, very little wind. It's kind of cool today. It's about 65, which is nice. So now we're shooting with the Remington core locked. We're going to take 3 shots at 100 yards with that. This is a type of ammo, the traditional core lock that I've been using for many years. Killed many deer with it. So these are the first 3 shots. And looking at that, that's right at an inch group. That's what this grid mark is. Shot a little bit over an inch group after making adjustments, and that's the Remington core locked, the new version. So at 200, we took 3 shots with the Remington core lock. Then we took 3 shots with the SUEUR Elite Hunter. Now I'm going to introduce a third ammo that this rifle has shown that it likes in the past, and that's 130 grain Federal .270 Winchester. And that's a soft tip, a lot more like core lock than either of these ballistic tips. So let's see how it groups. Looks like it's going to be low and left, this one. I didn't try the Federal at 100 yards, and I probably should have, so this is our first look in the comparison with the other ones. Looks like it grew pretty good. We'll have to go check it out. So we're out here at 200 yards up from the shooting station. And here's that target. So the first shots I took were with the SIG, and I believe this is the third round. Came back with the Remington core locked, and that was the one that I said, well, heck, it's at the right height, so I was aiming dead center. I was afraid the SIG was going to be low, and it is, but only by a little bit. This ammo was low by quite a bit more. I mean, it's still definitely a good kill shot, any one of these. And you can see that the group here is not bad. It's about a 1 MOA group at 100. So I actually did better with the Remington out here than I did at 100. Here's the surprise. Thought I'd try this Federal that I told you that the rifle liked. This is at 200 yards, guys. This is one hell of a group. That's probably as good as I've ever done at 200 yards. And that was with a warm barrel to boot. So we've got some notes and numbers for you to really break this down. This was our first group after bore sighting in last night, this new scope from Leupold. So not bad. And this was using the SIG. I wanted to hang on to the Remington because I have a limited supply of that, and it's new stuff, so replacing it might be tough. But what I did is, based off this, I made adjustments where I was looking to be about 1 to 1.5 high, which I got close to, and these are actually the Remington core lock rounds. And that was my best core lock group at 100, and that ended up being 1.25 inches, okay? So these other two groups that you see are me fooling around with that core locked, and even though I was adjusting left, I had to continue to adjust left, which surprised me. Came back at this small target up top left, and this is a 0.84 inch group, and that is back with the SIG Elite Hunter. So my best 100 yard group was the SIG Elite Hunter at 0.84 inches. Okay, so, and you'll notice that went from being here to here after those left adjustments that I made specific to the core locked. The 200 yard group really yielded some surprises. Okay, so here is my Remington core locked, and this is a group that ends up being 2 inches on the nose between these are the two farthest apart. So that's a 1 MOA group. So I actually shot a better MOA pattern at 200 than I did at 100 with the Remington core locked. I came back and tried that SIG, and it was a little bit low, which doesn't surprise me. And the third shot was actually off the paper, but that shot with the Elite Hunter ended up being a 2.2 inch group and a 1.1 MOA, so it deteriorated a little bit. Well, then we decided to try the Federal non-typical, which I've shot before and done well with. And this right here is the best 3-shot group I've ever had at 200 yards. And, you know, the barrel was definitely not cold at this point. And this ends up being, in terms of size of group, 0.56 inches at 200 yards for a 0.28 MOA. So that tells you what the rifle, what the scope are capable of with this particular ammo. Now, all three of these groups, or if you just took one shot out of them, are taking down that deer right where you're aiming at 200 yards. And you know, this gets you out a lot farther than that as well. But just wanted to show the comparison. I'll obviously say all rifles like a certain ammo better than some others. So this doesn't really prove anything, one ammo versus the other. Just shows how the MAUSER M-18 in 270 Winchester shoots these different ammo choices. But Again, I came out and saw this first time walking up to that 200-yard target, and I'm like, you got to be kidding. It's important to remember when we're talking about accuracy out of a rifle that there's a number of different variables that are very important. Number one, the rifle itself. You've got to have a sound foundation in terms of barrel. You've got to have a trigger that allows you to shoot accurately, things of that nature. It has to be also properly attached to the stock, whether or not the action is attached via glass bedding or some other methodology. All those things need to work well if you want to have consistent accuracy. The next thing you have is the optic setup. So you've got the optic itself, and then you have the attachment system, whether it's going on some type of a rail or rings or whatever the scenario may be. Those play a big part. Then you have the ammo. And there's so much variability there just within types of ammo, much less different grain weights, different charges, different velocities, things of that nature. How consistent is the manufacturer, or do you hand load, which gives you a lot of control in those situations. Then you have to also look at how are you resting the rifle. Are you trying to shoot freehand, offhand, which I often do, but for tests like this, you really need to have a secure situation, typically seated or prone position with some type of a bipod setup. But you have to have the firearm stabilized. And last but not least, the shooter themselves. Are you a decent shooter? Have you proven that with the right equipment, you can do some good target shooting, you can consistently hit the same spot, those kind of things. I was really interested in seeing what this Remington core lock could do, and by no means was I disappointed. It did not shoot as accurately as some of the others that I shot today, but this is a deer round, so what I'm real interested in seeing is how does it do against a hide going into soft tissue or bone. And if it performs like the rest of the core lock, then this performed more than adequately enough as a good hunting round in today's test. I would also have to say that the folks at Federal are not going to be disappointed with the results of this round. This just blew me away in terms of the consistency that it shot. Now, I will say this, these both being 130 grain 270 Winchester cartridges, you would think that they would have the same point of aim at least, but not necessarily. When you get into differences in 150 feet per second or something like that, it just means one's getting to the target a little bit quicker, so it hasn't dropped as much, things of that nature. I doubt if anybody's going to be disappointed at Remington because both these companies are now owned by Vista Outdoors. These are sister companies now. I want to be sure to thank the people over at Leupold for sending over this VX-3HD scope. This thing really is a nice scope. If you get a Leupold scope, some people pronounce it Leupold. One of the things you're going to notice if you get a scope of this caliber, and you know, this is, guys, this is a $600 scope, okay? It's not a cheap scope. And the differences between this and some of the budget scopes that I've used, I've reviewed well, and definitely don't discourage people from looking at, especially if they are on a budget. But the big difference here is just the clarity and quality of the glass. You can just see better with better quality components, and that's what you get when you're getting something of this nature. I also want to just once again do a shout out recommendation on this firearm, the 270 Winchester MAUSER M-18. It's a phenomenal firearm. It really is. I think you can pick these up still for about $550. I think this is every bit on par with a much more expensive rifle, and it's performed great with different optics on it. It's performed great with different ammo, and I'm really looking forward to taking this hunting this year. As always, we appreciate you watching Gun News and Reviews. For more information like this, reviews on products, firearms, accessories, as well as gun news in 5 minutes or less, please like and subscribe. Gun News and Reviews.